Welcome to Smart Tips. My name is Solomon Smart. I am your host. I'm so excited for you guys to watch this Smart Tips. I have a gentleman on. I've been known for just a little bit. We got connected through a mutual friend, and I'm going to tell you, this gentleman is amazing at what he does. He is a graphic designer. He owns his own business. He does UX design. He just has multiple things that he does, and I'm so glad he's on. I'd like to welcome Mr. Kevin Akins. Welcome to Smart Tips, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on, brother. How we doing?
We're doing great. How you been?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. Just trying to get this new fiscal year off the ground, you know.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
kind of a late start, but I'm getting there.
Good. There. Nice, Kevin. So, first question: where are you from?
I'm actually from Sacramento, man. I've probably spent the majority of my life here. Kind of back and forth between here and Los Angeles, though. I have a lot of family on my dad's side in LA, so that's like second home for me, you know. So, but Sacramento, I went to school out here, you know, played ball out here and whatnot. So, yeah.
Okay, you said you played ball. So, what sport?
Football.
Oh,
football.
Nice. What position?
I played wide receiver and I played middle linebacker.
Okay, so you're fast.
I used to be. I'm not a spring chicken anymore.
No,
man,
it's all right though.
Oh yeah.
You probably still got a little bit of step.
Yeah, a little bit.
You don't ever lose that when you're at those positions. But that's awesome, man. So I know we talked a little bit about UX design. We talked a little bit about graphic design. What made you want to go into those fields?
So for me, this really started out at childhood. When I was about 4 years old, maybe, they had like you remember Bob Ross?
Oh yeah, Bob Ross.
Yeah, right.
He threw you to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, man. They you know, I used to watch a lot of like PBS programming and whatnot as a kid. I was really into, you know, drawing, like most kids would have been, you know, into drawing or had their hand at it at one point in time. I was just very inspired by that show. And I really like to just draw, you know, that was like my thing. So just throughout, even like in elementary school, or just like while I got into like playing Pop Warner football at like 7, 8 years old, I would have like these days where I didn't even want to go to practice. I would literally just want to stay home and draw. Like that was just my thing, man. Like, you know, friends come knocking at the door, you know, want me to come out and play, and I'm just in the back like, nah, man. Like I'm drawing today. I'm drawing. Like I'm not coming out today. No tag, no, you know, no GI Joes, Legos, none of that. Like today, I'm just drawing. You know, that was my thing for a long time. But you know, it kind of stems from there. Once I got into high school, I got into advanced art. I actually ended up doing drama for about 3 years. That was kind of like the little detour that I took, because my school at the time had like a wait list, and like a lot of the elective classes had been filled up. So I didn't get to really do like an art class until like my sophomore junior year. So I took up drama for a while, did that. But once I was a junior in high school, I had kind of read these random articles. They had like these, you know, like photographers, you know, some of these editors at media companies and whatnot. They were like getting into this whole idea of like web development. Right. Like at the time, probably just more web design. I think that's kind of like an obsolete term these days. Like no one really calls himself a web designer.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the time that was a thing. I had just been getting into more graphic design because I was already into computers as it was. And so I thought the idea of just being able to take artwork and put it on the internet was just such a cool thing. Like, this is just me as a kid, just kind of amazed at that whole idea. And not like it was anything new. It wasn't an original idea. People had already been doing it. But for me, I just thought, okay, don't know how much money an artist can make. You know, if I'm going to be sketching and drawing things all day, like, you know, if you ask me, hey, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Definitely wasn't an artist. Like, I didn't want to be an artist, but this is the thing I enjoyed the most. To me, it just didn't seem like a likely career field. So, um, I got into it. My school didn't provide any web design classes, didn't really have graphic design. We literally just had art and advanced art. And so I took it upon myself, you know, early 2001, 2, and 3 to just hop on Google and start learning some of these basics of, you know, HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript and whatnot. So I hopped on and I did that. Couldn't afford like Photoshop or, you know, or Illustrator at the time, you know, obviously. So until I got into college, and then I would start using like my student ID and account to kind of get like the you know the teacher and student edition of like Adobe, you know, Master Suite and all these other things. Like I started getting my hands on those programs. So I think one thing just kind of led to the next with that. You know, once Steve Jobs kind of introduced the iPhone in 2007, it really just changed the game for everybody, I think. And it really just opened up like the need and the, you know, just it kind of made designers essential that much more than what they already were for years, you know. So now we're in this whole new digital space, and there was just a lot to learn as far as like the landscape of design and technology went. So I've been a student and a professional of this craft ever since, man. So I'm just going on 17 years now. So yeah.
Wow. Nice, man.
Oh yeah.
That's an awesome story. I think that when you talked about Steve Jobs, you know, before,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, graphic designers didn't necessarily get the plug that they needed. And we all know what Steve
Right.
Jobs is. It has to work great, but it has to look cool.
Yeah.
And
Oh
he
yeah.
was huge on that. Like it's got to be eye catching. Like if it's not eye catching, then nobody's gonna want just a box that works well, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So definitely graphic designers like yourself are extremely needed in so
Mm-hmm.
many areas. You guys create this beauty that is goes hand in hand with technology, and
Absolutely.
that's you guys in a small nutshell, but in the nutshell. So that's great. I know also that you do UI design. Now, for those who don't know what UI design is, kind of give us a small rundown. What is UI design?
So UI design is just short for user interface design. Um, Sometimes you can find a job or like a position for that's made specifically for UI. However, UI is actually a principle of UX design. A lot of the time, UX and UI is used synonymously, which is a big mistake, especially when it comes to like the workforce. And you know, as like a lot of these big companies, they're kind of catching on to some of these buzzwords like, oh, you know, this startup hired a UX designer, that one hired a UX designer too. So, you know, let's go ahead and hire a UX designer ourselves. What happens a lot of the time is you go to that interview and it's something completely different. You know, it's just that a lot of people just have their own idea of what UX and UI is and how those two are either the same or very different. So UI design focuses specifically on just the basic screen design, right? Of just like what a website or an app might look like. Uh, User interface design can also be applied to what the UI on your car stereo might look like. You know, now that's digital, right? It could be basically on like your new LG, Samsung refrigerator. They got these big screens on there now. So you know that's pretty much what UI design is. You're designing an interface, so to speak. The UX design just kind of helps kind of add the purpose to that design, really, you know. And then you have other divisions of that, kind of like you got interaction design. So now that deals mostly with prototyping. So you take a whole UI, which would be like a mock-up of like what a site might look like or what an app might look like, and now you add some interactions to it, some animations and things of that nature. And what that does is it gets like the intended user more in touch with what it is they're interacting with, right? So certain animations will pretty much provoke a certain emotion once a user presses a certain button. Um, Another thing to kind of keep in mind with UI design specifically, it's like product placement. And that's how UI design is kind of focused on. Like we're trying to kind of prioritize the content on the page based on whatever the basically like the company or the agency, like whatever they're trying to sell you, whatever they're trying to get you to do, they're going to put that up front, up at the very top. So that's kind of what UI design focuses around too.
That's
So,
that's a
oh
that's
yeah,
that's in everything. Like as you think about it,
isn't
like
everything?
it's in
It
everything. You
we
said
don't.
when
I
you
was
said
gonna say it's one of those things people don't pay attention to, but it's there. And if you buy something from that site, it worked. Like that's you know. So
yes, you hit on two things that I want to highlight. One is when you said like an LG fridge, you don't realize
hmm
like that a user, somebody who knows UX design, actually designed part of that fridge, right?
yes,
The other part
yes,
is that you touched on is with user interface design, like you said,
hmm
product placement. They're strategically putting things on the screen that catch your eye to make sure that you're using it and it's easy to
hmm
use. So, man, there's a lot of stuff to think about. So, yeah, you are definitely needed, but I appreciate what you guys do. And I don't know if you guys get enough praise for it because I know graphic designers and UX designers don't always get a round of applause for all the stuff that they're into because they're
right.
kind of behind the scenes, I would say.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We are definitely behind the scenes. I mean, I post work on my Instagram like a lot, not as much as not as much as I used to, but even when I do, some people are just like, I see you posting all these cool things. I still don't know what you do though, you know? It's just like, oh well, I'm a designer. So it's like, oh, you designed all this stuff. And it's like, yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, I don't see it, and that's okay.
So I know that with graphic design, sometimes you get to create, which is awesome, and sometimes you create for yourself. But a lot of times, you're creating for somebody else. So when you
Mm-hmm.
are drawing something out or you are putting something on the computer, um, you have to keep your client in mind. So what do you look for when you're working with a client, or even before?
For me, the thing I'm looking for most is what's important to them. It's one thing to ask a lot of questions, right? Like you can never ask enough questions, but you want to ask the right questions. And I think that's the most important thing too. Asking the right questions is going to open up your client's mind to something they never even thought about as they're trying to get their business established. um for me, a lot of my questions kind of come from the perspective of their target audience, their end user of their product. A lot of times they don't really think about it because they're just thinking about what looks cool to them, or in their mind what would be cool. It even goes as far as me asking, like really trying to get them to visualize who their target audience is. Is it a middle-aged man? Is it a stay-at-home mom? Is it a single parent? What are their hardships? Like what are the things that they have hardships with when it comes to like your products or your services? Like how do they get to that? How do they execute a task in buying something? What would be the ideal call to action that you want them to perform when they come to your site, when they see your logo, when they see your overall brand and business? So they don't really think about those things, and I really try to paint a very precise picture for them through just tons of meetings along the way, right? So I'll do a discovery meeting first. That's when I just start really picking everyone's brain and asking them questions. And, of course, you have the very obvious questions of, what's your budget? How much you willing to spend? Because you got to spend something. It can't just be nothing. You can't get services for free, because even us as designers, we have a bunch of licensing that we have to pay for just to create. So um you really have to establish a brand, a philosophy. You want to really think about your positioning as a brand. No good as a graphic designer without asking these questions to actually solve that problem. Design isn't art, it's problem solving. So that's really what it is, man.
No, that's a very interesting. What was highlighted is when you go and talk to a client and start in the beginning is there's a psychology behind what is going on. There's a science breakdown that was going on.
Yeah.
It's not just you drawing something and putting something on a computer or onto a
Right.
page. It is learning a human being, understanding them,
Yes.
who they are.
Yes.
So their brand
Exactly.
and who they are comes out onto whatever their product or service may be. So that is absolutely huge. So for those out there watching Smart Tips, your brand is important, and just because you may have a logo doesn't mean you have a brand. Make sure that you identify that before you go work with Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Or he'll help you identify it.
I'll help you identify.
So,
Yeah. And
another question is, when are you when you are having like trouble or a hard time figuring out some type of design, or be for yourself or somebody, what is something that you do, or how do you work through it? So you working through something, you're trying to figure it out, and you're having a hard time. What is it, the things that you do to get out of that hurdle?
there's a few things I do. Let's say midway through a project, get designer's block, run out of ideas. For me, what works a lot of the time is either I will schedule another meeting or a phone call, and I'll ask even more questions, right? So those questions may spark an idea. If I'm not doing that or they're not available for that, then what I like to do from the beginning is just put together a bunch of mood boards. So like these mood boards will pretty much have items or inspirations of things that are kind of related to, both closely and loosely related to the business or like what I'm attempting to design. And if that doesn't work, then I'll go to doing brainstorming. So I'll do like a bunch of mind mapping. I got like some software I use to create mind maps, or, like when we were kids, they called them webs. So you put like all the keywords in the webs and you extend them out to more keywords and so on and so forth. I use tools like that, and usually whatever keywords stick out the most, or like kind of like whatever the keywords boil down to, I'll then go back and make a mood board based on those keywords as well. So all of those things kind of tie in. I'll look at competitors, I'll look at their websites, I'll look at the things that they have. I'll see like what little elements of those I can take from there without copying, without, reminding any one of them, So you're not really stealing ideas, but you're kind of seeing and picking up on trends, stuff like that. So those are things that I do. Sometimes, man, all it really takes is like some good 90s hip hop, some jazz music, a nice little coffee shop with some art all around and, hanging on the walls, or just, taking a walk through the city. Just kind of get some inspiration, man. Like it could just be like a building that just looks a certain way. Just building architecture is just it's very inspiring, so it kind of feeds your mind. It feeds the creativity. Sometimes, man, like what I like to do with projects is I will, if given the time, I'll create some fluff. So like some time, I'll give myself like an extra week so that in case I hit a wall, I can use that time to kind of, reestablish the inspiration, just to keep going again. That happens. I haven't had a project that hasn't happened on yet. So like some projects, like I'm just on fire from the beginning, but for the most part, like, yeah, you will run into that issue. You will run out of ideas. You will have problems with it. So, and that also goes back to not really saying yes to things that you don't believe in. You kind of have to believe in the work. You have to believe in into what your client is doing. I think that's a really big part of it is kind of believing what it is they're doing, what their journey is, the message that they're sending. You kind of really have to live that yourself as a designer, because then you'll see the passion in the work that you do. So,
Wow. No, that's a great point. I think that having all that helps you to drive through those struggles anytime you have them. Um,
Oh yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
yeah, so taking those breaks, or whether it's you surround yourself with the art so that you understand, like it's all
Hmm.
encompassing. So that's awesome, man. It just such a great conversation, man. I think this is awesome. If you could, what is a quick tip that you would give somebody that's going to start out in graphic design or wants to start their own graphic design business? What is a quick tip that you can give them?
Quick tip I can give is learn. Stay learning. Always learn. No matter how old you are, no matter how far in your career that you get, always learn. There's never you'll never run out of information to pick up on. Like if our industry is constantly changing and growing, then that means that there's something that you have to learn. The day that you stop learning, you've given up. So don't give up. Keep on learning. That's really it, man. That's the root of it all. So
That's beautiful. Keep learning so you can stay relevant. Great tip by
yes.
Kevin Akins. Uh, Mr. Kevin, if you can share with them the name of your business, where they can reach you at, and maybe your IG, whatever you want to share with them, please let people know so that way they can maybe start collabing with you.
Well, I think for me, like the name of my business, the new look and feel of that is going to be called By Kevin or By Kevin Akins. It's Akins, by the way. I'm sorry about that. And you can actually find me at my social media handles are all at Brilliantly Kev. So those are all that's across Twitter, that's Instagram, maybe Facebook business, if that's even if people even use that. So yeah, that's the Twitter handle, Instagram and Dribble. Yeah, at Brilliantly Kev.
Okay. Nice, nice. I appreciate you being on Smart Tips, man. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I thank you for sharing all your tips and all your knowledge. I hope we'll have you on again. Hope to actually highlight some more stuff that you're doing. Um,
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to leave or say or want to share before we sign off?
I know. I think that's it, man. Hey, just keep learning. Just keep learning, man. That's it. That's it.
Well, thank you everybody for watching Smart Tips. As always, it's always a pleasure to share this knowledge and pass on to people who want to know more. As always, be humble, grateful, and happy. See you later.